You don't like horror where it's a bad stealth game? Yeah. Like one of the games I think I hate the most, I watched so many friends stream and I just could not wrap my head around, was Alien Isolation. It was just a bad stealth game. You just hide under a desk, watch the thing walk around, go, and then you walk to the next area, hide behind a thing, and the thing's like breathing a lot, walks past you, walks away, and then you walk to some other spot and then it breathes a lot. And I was like, what? This doesn't look fun. I don't know. It didn't seem that good. I thought like Visage looked like it was pretty well done with the horror elements, but I don't really like get scared, so I didn't like it because I felt like you were just walking through the same areas over and over. But some of the visuals of that game were really cool, so I liked that one a little better. But I didn't play it. I sat there with Henya while she was playing it. I was her emotional support, and I felt bad because she was getting so scared, but I kept laughing because the old lady ghost looked like Justin Timberlake. like when he had the curly hair and he was like, it's gonna be me. It looked like that. So when she like turned her head around a corner, I was like, oh my god, she looks like Justin Timberlake. And Henya's like crying in the call, and she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, Justin. That shit was really funny. Some of the visuals of that game were really cool though, so I appreciated it. Like artistically it was cool. I don't know, but yeah, some of the mechanics seemed like not fun. I don't know, it had its moments that were good and bad. I hate the horror games where it's just find key, open door for 20,000 levels, which a lot of them are. I don't love those. I don't know, I'll do that for friends though. They don't always call upon it, but like I am available if they want to play a horror game and they want someone to sit and call who does not really get scared. I'll just sit there and like help them out. I think it's good that she gets scared though, because honestly, like that's so fun to watch as a viewer. I think if you're a streamer and you get really scared by horror games, that's great. And I am truly envious. I wish I was like piss my pants levels of scared because it's so funny from like the other side watching that. It's so funny. I don't know. My reactions to like horror games are like not funny because I'm just like, oh, haha. Sometimes people still like watching it because they laugh with me. You know, I do find that like it's not the worst, but people can tell when I'm not that entertained. I think Mouthwashing was a great example because I was trying to get into the story, but there were so many bits of it that were just so stupid. And I think while playing it, I had an okay time for some things, but I didn't like that game. I really didn't like that game that much. There were elements of it that I really liked, but I think there's so many ways that writing could have been different to really make that story be different and like hit, and it just didn't. It just felt not deep. I don't know. The game made you so mad. I didn't like the meat nightmare. Right, the end of the game killed it. I think I was more excited for like the first half of it playing it because I felt like the buildup was good. I felt like all the beginning stuff was going somewhere that felt good, and I was like, oh, this is getting cool. And then yeah, I don't know. It just fell off. At some point, I feel like it didn't know what to do with itself. It didn't know how to end in a meaningful way, and it just fell off. And the ending made me mad, and I didn't like it anymore. But it started out cool. I don't know, man. I would have written it differently. I think the end was really killed it. Most horror games have a problem paying off the suspense. I think what is the writers. I think the developers are usually the writers. They don't usually hire in like a really good writer. Case in point, Outer Wilds has some of the best story. It's written so well. It's looped into the gameplay so well. How did they do it? They hired a really good writer. That was it. Then again, a lot of smaller studios, they were a smaller studio for the record. They just decided to put their budget there. But smaller studios with no budget don't have the budget to do that. So it's developers, people more technically inclined that end up being the writers, you know? And I think they have good ability to come up with really cool premises. They can come up with a really cool plot idea, but then doing the actual writing to have the payoff work, like the second half of the game, it always falls off, always, because it's hard to do that unless you have a lot of experience writing. Like it's really tough. It's really tough. Everyone can write a great first chapter to a book, but like it's so hard to write a good last chapter. So I think that's the issue with them. You know, when I don't like a game, I'm not like these devs sucked. Or if I don't like the writing, I'm not like, how dare these people who are mostly game devs be bad at writing? Like I just wish they had budget to hire writers. Sometimes there are devs that are good writers. Sometimes there are, but you know, not always. But usually a lot of the games that people like, the full writing itself isn't what they like. They like the idea of it. They like the world building or something like that, you know? Probably have to get them very early on in development too. If you're willing to go back a lot, you don't have to, but I believe Outer Wilds did get their writer in fairly early. Thing is, their game was basically like functionally kind of built because they did an alpha as a school project, and that was doing pretty well. And then after that, they wanted to make it into a fuller game. They wanted to add story, then they hire the writer. So it was early enough, yeah, that there was a lot that they could do with it. What I liked was that writer, like, they did so much with trying to not add dialogue. Like, the writer was saying, they did an interview with her, and she was like, my main thing with writing Outer Wilds was I was trying so hard to say everything that needs to be said in as little dialogue as possible. So you spend less time writing or reading the writing and more time looking around and like thinking about those 2 sentences you read and then looking around the environment and seeing what they meant by it, you know? So because she was so involved in whittling down the writing and then helping them come up with ways to apply it in the world. So she was helping the art team, like how can we put something in the environment that clues them into a deeper meaning to what they just read, you know, like that was really valuable. And that's what made that writing for that game go from like not bad to really, really good was having that person where their whole interest in the game was specifically making sure that the writing hit and that the story hit, you know, that was the best part of that. You don't think devs require a writer to tell a good story, especially when they're the ones creating the worlds? I think they still do a lot of the time. The thing is, like, are we saying just tell a story? Or are we saying, like, tell it well? Because to just tell the story, they can just do that. But one thing that makes a lot of people not like certain games or makes the story not hit is when they like spoon feed it to you, which I find a lot of indie devs do. They can't help themselves. They just spoon feed. A great example was Superliminal. It was all like this environmental storytelling and they were cluing you in that something was a little off in this puzzle game world. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, interesting. And like all of the story was going really well. And then you get to the end of the game and they spoon feed it to you and they make this whole weird ending sequence to the game where they basically tell you exactly what they want you to get out of the story and in what way and what it like this is what the deeper meaning is, by the way. It's like they wrote their own explanation of it. It took what was building up to be really good and just completely flopped on the story. If you played up until that point, it was a little more open to interpretation, but it felt more impactful. And then it just stopped right there. It was bad. It was bad. And I find a lot of people do that because they don't know how to write well in a way where they can like leave gaps for you to assume. They feel like they like need to tell you, and that can ruin it for a lot of people. Good horror game doesn't need to have payoff, but it has to have very consistent atmospheric tension. Yeah. I agree. Which a lot of the better ones do. That's why people liked, that's why people liked PT so much. It just got more and more unsettling and like kind of slowly, kind of bit by bit. One thing would go wrong and you look at a spot and you'd be like, like expecting that wrong thing to be there again and it wouldn't be. So now you're like, oh my God, what else is wrong? You know, and it just, that was a really good one for that reason. It's just the atmospheric tension. It was good. I don't really love that sort of thing, but like, I got it. You know what I mean? I got it. I love leaving room in a story. That not being a thing is one of my biggest pet peeves. I think that's what most indie devs kind of like run into is they want you to understand their story, but their games aren't usually like long enough that they can sit there and have you go through all this dialogue because what they're thinking in their head would be like a 60-hour game with gameplay and all this talking in between. So they're like, how do I deliver the story well? And they end up just packing sections of their game with like explanation. Stuff that they really want you to know. I think a lot of folks, writers do this too, a lot of folks tunnel vision on what they want you to get out of it, when really what's more impactful a lot of the time is letting the person get what they're gonna get out of it, letting their own unique life experience in mind just kind of figure out what it's gonna get from the story. So they love to like not leave room. And I feel like when you put someone on rails through a story, that leaves no room for them to relate to it in their own way. And that really, that tunnel visioning like is what gets people not liking a lot of the writing. Ooh, you said Firewatch was really annoying at the end for exactly what I'm describing. Oh yeah, the way they just like tell it to you. They're like, this was the story, by the way. I agree. I felt like the ending put you fully on rails in a way that I kind of didn't want out of it. I was feeling the game for the first bit, and then, yeah, hamfist is a good way to put it. Like, they just kind of shove the story down your throat at the end. Up until, like, the last quarter of the game, I was really with it. And then, in the end, they were just like, oh, by the way, none of it was really, like, anything crazy, and it was actually just this one thing, and the guy is gonna give you a tell-all. Like, he did something that felt out of character. The dude that was the culprit just did a tell-all and just told you everything in some recording. Like, by the way, here's why I did everything and everything I was thinking, and blah, 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 and here's all the pictures of me, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why did we get spoon-fed this at the end? I don't know. Ruin the lonely, mysterious atmosphere they'd spent the whole game building up. Yeah, and like all that stuff with Delilah, the whole game was revolving around you trying to figure out, like, can you trust Delilah or not? What's she about? What's her thing? And then they just dropped it at the end. They just dropped it. They were like, by the way, it was like nothing though, haha. And I was like, well, then what did I spend this whole game doing? What was I here for if we were just gonna get to the end and they were gonna be like, it's fine, by the way, Lamau, right? So I think everything up until that last chunk of the game was really good, and I got why people were like, oh, you should play this, it's good. But then the ending, I was like, you can't tell me you like this ending. Like, I don't know. It threw it off. Up until then, though, I was with it. So the opposite also sucks. Hate endings where they just leave it up to your imagination. Yeah, I think it should be guided. Like, they leave it up to your imagination on the details, but the general something is kind of like somewhat guided. You're given clues, and then you can kind of make up in your mind what you want to get out of that. Or maybe they show you what it is, but they don't tell you. I just don't want them to tell me the meaning. I think Outer Wilds was great for that. Outer Wilds ends. I'm not going to talk about the ending because I don't want to spoil, but you get to the ending and you're shown something that you can interpret. And a lot of people do interpret it similarly in a big general kind of way. But as for the specifics of what you're supposed to get out of it, the real specifics, that is all up to your own interpretation. And that's what I really like about that. So what it means to you and what it means to how you feel about what you did in the game, everything is different depending on the person. But it's not so vague that you're like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know what's going on, right? Because I hate that too. Like when a game ends and you're just like, okay, well, what's happening? And you just feel confused. That's such a bad feeling.